Exactly at 4 o'clock in the morning UTC on October 3rd, the sky above Mars came alive. What was supposed to be a silent passage for an interstellar traveler turned into an event no one was prepared for. Neither NASA, nor ESA, nor even the most experienced astronomers. An object known as the Three-Eyed Atlas passed through our solar system on a one-way trajectory from the depths of interstellar space, zooming past Mars at a distance of just 29 million kilometers. Every camera, every probe, every sensor sent by humanity to the red planet turned its gaze toward this guest. But what happened next turned all our notions about comets, space, and our solitude in the universe upside down. For the first time in history, Mars did not just watch the sky, it responded. The event began quietly. The comet appeared as a dim emerald glow against the darkness, a thin gas halo shimmering behind it. For a few precious minutes, the data coming from the orbiters seemed ordinary. The orbital probes Mars Reconnaissance, Mars Express, MAVEN, and the Trace Gas Orbiter confirmed the same readings. But then the brightness began to grow. Not gradually, but exponentially, as if a switch had been turned on deep within the comet's core. Spectrometers recorded gas eruptions unlike anything observed before. Not the familiar jets of water vapor, but sharp bursts of cyanogen and carbon dioxide, elements that should have remained frozen in the cold of space. The surface temperature of the comet rose sharply, its coma rapidly expanding, and the energy output exceeded predicted limits. The scientists became concerned and began recalibrating their instruments, watching as the readings grew stranger by the minute. The comet behaved not like an icy rock, but as something aware of being watched. Then, amidst the chaos, the first auroras appeared. Mars, with its thin atmosphere and fragmented magnetic field, almost never produces auroras. However, that night, ultraviolet sensors detected light waves cascading across the dark side of the planet. Strips of purple, green, and raspberry swirled in an electric motion. The glow was not caused by solar wind, as no solar flares had been recorded. The only possible trigger was the comet Three-Eyed Atlas. For many hours, the upper atmosphere of Mars pulsed and shimmered in sync with the position of the comet. To the observers, it looked like a cosmic dance, a celestial heartbeat connecting two worlds. On the surface, the Perseverance rover captured faint flashes on the horizon, while the Curiosity radiation detector registered unexplained microbursts of charged particles. Even the long-dormant seismometer InSight, though covered in dust, registered a vibration, an electromagnetic hum penetrating the Martian soil. The data was undeniable. Mars was responding to something. Whether it belonged to a comet or originated from within itself, no one could say. But this time, the red planet was not silent. It sang. Soon after the auroras reached their peak, something else began. Fragments started to separate from the comet Three Eyes of Atlas, like glowing cores. Spacecraft high above Mars captured shimmering fragments spiraling like metallic snowflakes drifting in the void, bending into symmetrical arches as if guided by invisible threads. The scientists called it a spiral drop, but the movement was too precise to be natural. Each piece seemed to turn in unison, as if obeying a single signal. Some observers even suggested that the fragments were tuned to align with the planet's magnetic poles before drifting away. Then the orbital spacecraft, studying trail gases, detected a sharp, unexplained spike in methane, a chemical substance that had long puzzled scientists on Mars. The timing was precise. The spike began just as the comet streaked overhead. The question was no longer whether the Three Eyes of Atlas had influenced Mars, but how exactly. Did the interstellar object gift the planet with exotic compounds, or did it awaken something ancient, buried under dust, waiting for a signal to return? Then a sound was heard, faint, steady, and impossible, and a low rhythmic hum, pulsing every 22 seconds. NASA engineers initially dismissed it as interference, but when Mars Express from the European Space Agency recorded the exact same sequence from a completely different observation point, doubts were dispelled. 2 spacecraft, 2 instruments, identical time. The hum lasted almost an hour, resonating just below audible frequencies. To the untrained ear, it might have seemed like mere static noise, but for experts, it was an anomaly that defied random explanation. Officially, the agencies attributed this to plasma resonance, a natural interaction between the Martian crust and the charged tail of a comet. However, rumors began to spread among the mission control staff. Some said it was feedback, a reaction to the electromagnetic probes we sent to monitor the comet. Others believed it was a beacon. Whatever it was not random. The hum stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving Mars strangely quiet again. But one thing was clear. Something real, measurable, and possibly intentional had occurred between the planet and the object. When dawn finally illuminated the Martian horizon, the planet was no longer the same. A faint green glow illuminating her night side disappeared. But the tools left on the surface told another story. The Perseverance rover recorded chemical anomalies in the thin atmosphere, traces of compounds that should not exist outside of laboratory synthesis. The carbon isotopes did not match in ratio, particles aligned in magnetic directions that contradicted the local geology, and the radiation level unexpectedly dropped, as if something had absorbed it overnight. The methane surge previously detected has vanished, but what replaced it turned out to be stranger. A stable pattern of microelectrical discharges rising from the ground and forming invisible networks across the planet's surface. Mission analysts saw something resembling an electronic circuit, natural formations responding to energy. They called it residual plasma effects. However, some whispered of awakening. On Mars, something small, subtle, yet purposeful had been awakened. The planet seemed to remember something, and no matter what the three Atlas did, it left Mars buzzing, alive, as it hadn't been for billions of years. Far beyond Mars, at the second Lagrange point, the James Webb Telescope finally regained a clear view of an interstellar visitor as it drifted away from the red planet. When his infrared sensors detected an object, the data that returned silenced even the most skeptical scientists. The temperature of the comet was not decreasing as expected. It was increasing. Her inner layers, presumably frozen for ages, emitted pulsations as if something inside generated controlled bursts of heat. The spectroscopic data was even stranger. The compounds of diatomaceous carbon and cyanogen were arranged in ideal harmonious proportions, repeating at intervals reminiscent of coded sequences. The scientists responsible for the analysis argued for hours. No natural process could maintain such precision. Then came another shock. A weak electromagnetic echo was detected not from the comet's tail, but from the surrounding vacuum. It seemed that light was reflecting off an invisible structure that should not exist. The team working with Webb images enhanced the data and discovered a pattern. 3 concentric spirals of ionized particles, slowly rotating and perfectly aligned with the trajectory of a comet. The next question everyone asked was simple. Who or what was controlling this? While Webb continued his observation, the ground telescopes began reporting something unusual. The green hue of 3 Atlas moons intensified, not randomly, but rhythmically. Long-term photographs taken in Chile and South Africa showed that brightness pulsates in exact accordance with the 22 seconds of signal recorded by a Mars orbiter a few days ago. It seemed that the object was sending a message not back to Mars, but outward. Radio astronomers detected faint modulations in the background noise, hidden deep within cosmic static. When the signal was filtered and translated into sound, the pattern formed a slow, unsettling resonance, a pulsation that seemed to speed up and slow down, almost like breathing. Some believed it was plasma interaction. Others suggested it was intelligent modulation, but one undeniable fact remained. The signal repeated every time the comet aligned with the planet's magnetic field. This was happening with Mars, and now it was approaching Earth's orbital zone. If this rhythm continued, our planet would soon become the next target, a cosmic heartbeat that was gradually growing louder. In a quiet laboratory in Pasadena, a young data analyst working late at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory made a discovery that shocked the entire astrophysical community. By overlaying pulse frequencies recorded on Mars, brightness fluctuations from ground telescopes, and temperature changes captured by the James Webb Telescope, she discovered a hidden symmetry. A mathematical structure repeating in every dataset. The numbers formed ratios matching simple sequences, identical to those found in the first encoded radio messages humanity ever sent into space, the Arecibo message. This was no coincidence. The comet responded, using the logic we applied to determine intelligence. Webb's next observation confirmed this nightmare. The object's reflective patterns changed, perfectly aligning with Earth's orbital plane. She was no longer just passing through the solar system, she had reoriented. The official version remained calm, citing optical artifacts and plasma reflections. But in the Mission Control Center, fear quietly spread. If the trajectory of the comet Tri-Atlas changed even a little, it meant that it was not just drifting, but reacting. And when it perfectly aligned with the blue dot that had been watching it for months, the world realized something alarming. Whatever it was, this object knew we were here. As Tri-Atlas continued its journey towards the sun, Earth's radio observatories began detecting a strange interference pattern spreading across several frequency ranges. At first, it seemed like sunny noise, a static background from increased radiation of the inner heliosphere. But when astronomers compared the data with recordings made during the comet's encounter with Mars, they realized the structure of the interference was identical. It wasn't random static noise. It repeated, calculated, almost intentional. The pattern reflected the same 22-second pulse, but this time it was multi-layered. Several harmonics overlapped like chords in a cosmic symphony. NASA, ESA, and private space agencies collaborated to triangulate the source, expecting it to be linked to Tri-AE Atlas. But signals were coming from multiple points along its path, as if the space around the comet had become a transmission field. The light of the nearest stars seemed to slightly bend as it crossed this area, creating barely noticeable distortions. Microlensing effects indicated some form of a structured energy grid, and yet the true mystery lay not in what was transmitted, but in what was received. Instruments on Earth detected a subtle feedback. The echo of our own radio signals returned not after a few seconds, but with a delay equal to the time required for a round trip to Mars. The comet seemed to reproduce us. Our own transmissions were reflected and altered. At the Goldstone Deep Space Network Complex, a team of signal analysts began analyzing the returned echoes. When the data was processed through digital compression models, the noise created a creepy geometric pattern. These were not random noises, but sequences of symmetrical spirals identical to the fractal alignments previously recorded by the James Webb Telescope around the 13th moon of Atlas. Of every curve, every ratio corresponded to the golden ratio, as if the energy emissions of the comet were transformed into mathematical language. Some of the best minds in astrophysics compared the structure to self-replicating data. The information was encoded not in bits or waves, but in light itself. One of the researchers described it as a cosmic mirror, speaking through reflections. Then came the realization that enveloped all the scientists. The pattern not only conveyed something new, but responded to transmissions created by humans. Old probes like Voyager 1 and Pioneer 10 sent encoded maps of Earth decades ago, along with the infamous golden records containing music, sounds, and greetings from humanity. Now the mathematical sequences returning from the 13th Atlas satellite seemed to include fragments of the same signals, distorted, inverted, and superimposed on something else that had nothing to do with us. The universe was not just echoing randomly. It was responding. As the comet's trajectory approached Earth's orbital plane, telescopes around the world began to capture an event that defied all predictions. For several minutes each night, a faint green light appeared in the upper layers of the atmosphere, the same emerald hue observed during the encounter with Mars. It was barely discernible to the naked eye. For most, it looked like the northern lights, but the light did not come from solar winds or geomagnetic storms. It came from space. Satellite sensors tracked invisible streams of charged particles coming from the direction of the 13th Atlas satellite, pulsing in the same rhythm. 22 seconds between peaks. Amateur astronomers captured time-lapse footage showing light bending along the planet's magnetic lines as if scanning the Earth itself. Government agencies dismissed this as cosmic rays and atmospheric refraction, but in private conversations, scientists fell into panic. The sequence was too regular. The comet was approaching for a reason. It interacted, tuning into our world just like it did with Mars. The green light was not a random fluorescence. These were data encoded in light frequencies, decipherable only through advanced spectroscopy. Somewhere deep in the invisible ether between planets, an exchange of information was occurring. And this time, we were the recipients. At an emergency meeting held jointly by NASA, ESA, and the International Astronomical Union, the situation was recognized as beyond standard scientific classification. The data was irrefutable. The 13th satellite Atlas emitted patterns resembling a structured communication signal, reflected the magnetic fields of planets, and displayed controlled thermal behavior. Now the object was moving into direct alignment with Earth's orbit. When the largest telescopes in the world focused their lenses on the comet, its core flared one last time, the brightness of this light rivaling Venus in the morning sky. Within this light, spectral analysis revealed something impossible, oscillations indicating the presence of internal cavities of unknown density, almost as if it were something mechanical. The debates reached a philosophical level. Should humanity attempt to respond? Some argued for silence, pointing to the risk of attracting even more attention. Others insisted that contact had already been established. Ignoring this now would be pointless. The last data packet from the James Webb Telescope before solar interference recorded something alarming. The comet's speed increased without any visible source of thrust, as if it was waiting for the moment to accelerate. Its trajectory now pointed not only towards the sun, but also crossed Earth's orbital path in less than 60 days. Whether by coincidence, physics, or intention, the comet Triangulum Atlas became visible again, and this time it would not just pass by. As the signal from Triangulum Atlas intensified, something began to stir beneath the Earth's crust. Seismographs around the world began to record low-frequency vibrations unrelated to tectonic movements or volcanic activity, but repeating with the same rhythm as an electromagnetic pulse every 22 seconds. From Antarctica to the Pacific Ocean, these oscillations resonated through the lithosphere as if the entire planet was tuning into a cosmic frequency. Deep-sea sensors recorded acoustic anomalies moving through the water at impossible speeds, creating standing waves on the ocean floor. This phenomenon was not destructive, at least not yet, but it manifested consistently. The same impulse everywhere. When data analysts overlaid the readings on a global map, the fluctuations outlined geometric lines connecting ancient monuments, Giza, Nazca, Stonehenge, Easter Island, creating a grid that reflected the double spiral of the Atlas constellation's tail.